All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're listening to this, we are just grateful that you are here. This is our very first episode of Big Bear Theory. So I'm here with Tanner Rahoi. We are going to be doing podcasts together, and I wanted to, because Tanner, this was actually your idea to really initiate this. So I wanted to get kind of your perspective into why we were trying to really get a podcast together and what kind of inspired you to try and make this happen.
Yeah, man. First of all, beautiful intro.
Thank you.
That was perfect. Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, I kind of was thinking about the podcast at first as being a way that we can kind of connect with people off the clock and in the off season. Because in season, that's like one of the best things about, being with Barefoot is that it feels like a family and it feels like everybody's together. But when it's in the off season, there's not many opportunities to get together. So I think that this podcast could be a way of, kind of keeping that up.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed as I kept moving up, because for those who don't know me and for those who don't know Tanner, we love to talk. That is probably our favorite pastime, is to be in front of everybody and talk and, just teach them what we've experienced in the past, how to just improve and really try to be the best version that we can help you to be. So that got really, really hard getting up into this level and trying to reach everybody. It just became less and less feasible. And so I really am excited that we're starting this podcast, because I really think it's going to be able to help us still reach out to a large portion of the community, even if we can't actually be there face to face. Now, naturally, of course, Tanner and I will still be out there face to face, getting to know everybody as much as possible. But it's just a way to be present with you guys as much as possible and still be able to kind of help through this journey, especially going through Barefoot. But even reaching out to people that don't necessarily work within our company, we do hope to just try and help just the success as you go through first job, as you go through many of jobs, high school, college. Our goal is to just help you through the journey, through random discussions. I'm sure it's going to be a bunch of tangents along the way, but hopefully you all get something out of it, at least one thing out of it per podcast, and just enjoying the show. So very excited, this is something I want to do for a long time as well. So very grateful for that Tanner also wanted to do this so that we could actually make it happen.
I got your back.
A little background, I guess, on both of us. For me, I'm on the older side, so I'm officially 31 now. So I had the old man stage last year, and
Woo.
I pretty much had a very basic high school living. I did very well. I did every sport known to man. Then I graduated with like a 3.9 GPA. So I started off through 18 very well. And then once I went to college, then it didn't go so well. And so as you'll kind of go through each podcast, you'll kind of see some of the struggles that I've endured, how I got through those struggles, how I advanced out of them, and kind of where I currently am. And then Tanner, you're the young guy here. And I think that's going to be helpful because, Tanner, you're what, 24, 25?
Yeah, I'm 24.
Yeah, 24.
25
so,
next April. So
it's going to be really fun, I think, on my perspective and even on Tanner's perspective, because we get to go back and forth. Because I think 5 years is like a big, you can see the difference of 5 years. And I actually, right. Tanner, this was really funny. I had a Snapchat memory. It was from 4 years ago. And it was a picture of me sleeping with Walker. And so we had just gotten Walker at the time, and we're on my bed. And I have the good old fashioned, like my mattress is on the ground. Like I didn't have a bed frame. My headboard was a Home Depot box. because I had like these red sheets, and the red actually stained the wall of my apartment. So I had to use like a cardboard headboard to keep my sheets from staining the wall.
So it brought you
Um,
back. You saw that, and it brought you back to
yeah, it
where
brought
you
me
think
back
that
to
I
like,
am in my life.
wow, those are great times. So for those that are curious, I do have a bed frame now. I still have the red sheets. Actually, they're still legendary. But yeah, it was crazy to see because now I have a house. Um, I have a wife. I have three four-legged children. So huge difference
Four-legged children.
in
Yeah.
4 years. Very cool.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, you said it yourself. It's like we're at different stages of our lives. You're a little bit more accomplished and have been out in the real world a little bit longer than I have, I guess. And like for me, it's like I graduated college almost a calendar year ago, and it's weird to think about that because it felt like I was in school for I was in school for 19 years of my life or 18 years of my life. So,
Yeah.
on and off after high school, of course. But, and I had my fair share of struggles through college too. I mean, in high school, I actually had way worse grades in high school than in college, which is like every teacher in high school will tell you, oh, when you get to college, it's going to be a lot harder. But for me, it was like I didn't apply myself in high school. I didn't want to, and college kind of smacked me in the face and was like, hey, you actually do need to study, and you actually need to learn this material as opposed to just coasting through. So I kind of got my wake up call in college, and now I'm taking on this new challenge of having my degree and working within Barefoot and kind of like furthering my professional career. That's like a completely different thing that I think that a lot of people before me, like maybe 21, 22, they're about to have to start thinking about that and kind of like having that mindset on it. But it's weird to just be like kind of thrust into it. So we're both learning ourselves in our stages of life and stuff. So I think that this podcast would be cool to just talk about it and kind of learn together.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting with that, you mentioned one, college waking you up, which it is true. I always say two kinds of people come out of college, and that's those that get like the wake up session. Like I actually have to kind of apply and start taking things seriously.
Right.
And then you have the other side that really throws himself rock bottom, I guess. They try to almost kind of like live back into high school, and they don't necessarily grasp that concept that they have to keep going
Right.
and advancing themselves. And so that was
Because I think it's
indeed what it was like for me as
easy.
well.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy for especially going into college too. It's like it's very easy to go into it, especially if you have the luxury of like either having like financial aid paying for you, or you have your parents paying for you. It's like I see a lot of kids transitioning. I say kids, I'm not even that much older than them, but like I see people going into college and like you go in there with like you don't even know what to expect, right? And like
No,
you
you
think
don't.
that
Not at all.
you can miss a few classes here and there, and you can miss that this and that, and it's some classes that will be fine, but it is that one time that like it's a class where two missed classes means a drop in letter grade, and then at the end of the semester you're like, oh my gosh, I'm between like I'm either going to get a C or a D, and it's like I could really use that extra letter grade just by coming to one more class. So it's just little things like that.
Yeah, and it's like to me what got me at least really stuck in a situation, because we basically had different paths, right? Like you said, you kind of struggled there, or didn't really apply yourself in high school, and
Mhm.
then just massively increased in college. For me, it was the opposite. I did very well in high school and bombed my first semester of college. I mean, it was bad. I think I ended my first semester with like a 2.2 GPA, and I dropped out actually for more reasons, and that's going to be like probably a different episode. But that was like the short story. I did terrible,
Right.
and ironically, and this is what's funny, it wasn't even from college partying. That which is like why most people kind of do that, right? Like
Yes.
they focus a little bit too much on the partying and not as much on school. For me,
Right.
no joke, it was literally taking naps. The fact that I could just take what felt like I could just take like these 3-4 hour naps at a time in between classes or getting out of
Yeah.
class at like 12:30.
And
That's
that's
really
just
what got me.
procrastinating everything. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, for high school, it's like, okay, I'll do the homework assignment literally the day of and then be done. But in college, there's homework assignments, but the overall grade for your homework is maybe 10% at best. Like they don't
Right.
really put a lot into the homework assessment. So you can make 100 and it's only a 10% of your grade. And
I
so,
yeah. I think that high school is very much nowadays geared towards teaching you how to learn. And then I think that college nowadays is you actually just have to learn it. It's not teaching you how to learn, right? If you don't know how to learn when you go to college, that's something that you're going to like, it's going to be a wake up call.
yeah, and you need to like learn how you like to learn. And this is one thing I
Yeah.
did, and this isn't all colleges. This is just the ones that I went to. There's like this big study if you handwrite something, like 80% of the population, if you handwrite something, you're more likely to remember it. And I always got frustrated by that because at the colleges I went to, and I went to University of Texas, San Antonio, and Collin College, which was honestly they didn't make handwriting a mandatory thing, but the University of Texas San Antonio and the University of Texas Dallas, those two schools, you couldn't have a computer out to type your notes,
Wait,
or
and
they had really
this is like
harsh
recent.
restrictions where you could only be in like front.
Oh wow.
And they said that because of the 80% population rule. Well, it sucked because I knew I was a part of the 20% population pool where handwriting wasn't going to benefit me. And I think they're slowly getting better at that. One, just to be more comfortable with the technology and using it and just kind of letting it be. But it was a struggle point for me because I wasn't able to use what I knew was best for me to learn. But I do agree with you, like nowadays, they really are pushing. And what people should do is do like how do you learn and what's the best way for you to learn, but also there needs to be like this open mindedness that just because you think there's a good way to learn doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best way for you to learn. And
Right.
so I did appreciate them trying to kind of force this handwriting thing, but at the same time, after like 2 semesters of doing handwriting, I just knew it wasn't going to work for me. And what actually worked better for me if I couldn't use my laptop was nothing. Like I just sat there and lecture, listened to the teacher, and then just kind of did what I did afterwards. I would make my own separate notes. I'd read on the textbook. I just did that kind of thing. And that's what got me through the best of my ability.
Right. Yeah, I think me personally, this is a little random note, but I think with handwriting, I'm kind of the same way with you. It's like it doesn't help me because it just promotes me to doodle and like draw more. So I would become like very out of tune with like what was being taught if I was actually handwriting down. So I'm kind of the same way. I need to be engaged, looking at somebody doing it. I'm very hands on with
Right.
learning and stuff. But I mean, you brought up a good point, like with the way that you learn. Another thing that you kind of have to realize, I think, between in college is community college is different from university. And like
Yes.
community college has pros and it also has cons, and universities have pros and they also have cons. I think that for me, I went to both. I went to Collin Community College right out of high school. Went there for one
Hell
year.
yeah, brother.
Yep, Cougar,
Go
Cougar for life.
Cougars.
Yep. But I went to Texas Tech after that for a year, and then I came back and went back to Collin, and then eventually finally went to UNT and graduated from there. So I've been to 2 universities and Collin on 2 occasions. And one thing that I can safely say is that a lot of professors at universities, they this sounds crude, but it's true. they really, at the end of the day, you passing the class is up to you. Like they, especially like a lot of professors who have been there at universities a long time, who have tenure, they
Mhm.
are going to put the information in front of you, but they're not going to get on to you for not, attending class regularly. They're not going to get on to you for, like, they're not going to go out of their way to make sure you're learning it, because it's up to you. You're paying for
Yeah.
the class. At universities, they expect, like, I guess, a little bit better standard, but that doesn't mean that they're bad professors, right? You have to give them like the time of day to actually go to their class and learn that information. But I think it's just interesting, kind of reflecting back on it now that I'm all out of it and done. It's like a lot of the best professors and professors that cared the most were actually at community college. Like they
Mhm.
genuinely cared. They, were passionate about their subject. They never missed a day. Yeah, I mean, just little things. They'd see you in the hallway, and they were just nice people.
Yep.
Not saying that your university professors are monsters, but it kind of goes both ways. So
Yeah, I think, because I did that, that was kind of my process. Like I went to UTSA for a semester, and then I think it was off for a year, went to Collin College. I think I ended up changing my major and still finished out Collin College, got my associates, and then went to university. That was kind of my basic path that I took. Took 7.5
mhm,
years to get a bachelor's degree, but that was my basic path, right? And
right,
the one thing I noticed with Collin College, community college, is I think it does a very good job setting you up for university. And what I mean by that is if you get your associate's degree at a community college, for the most part, you have a much easier process to transition to a university. And this is something that I experienced. Like I was trying to go to a university a year before my associates, and it was actually wild. If
you
I
needed
would have
like
done
one
that
more
path, I
GPA
would have
point,
had it
right?
done basically 3.5 semesters. If
Oh
I just
gosh,
would have finished my one extra semester to get my associates, then I would have had it done just my 2 semesters. So
wow.
it was a
Yeah,
much easier way to transition for sure.
yeah. I remember transferring to Texas Tech. I wanted to go my first year,
Yeah.
and the like it's so weird, man. It's like in order to get into a university like Texas Tech straight out of high school, you got to be like top whatever percent. You got to have a good GPA, good standing. You probably had to do some like, you know community service or anything like that. But to transfer into it, you got to have one, I think it's 1 year, so 30 hours of college credit, and it's like a 2.5 GPA, which is
Yeah.
like
It's
that's the
crazy.
average. Yeah, it's wild. But I think that with universities are cool because, especially like big ones like Texas Tech, like it sounds awesome, and it sounds like, you know cool to go to the football games and the basketball games and have that school spirit, which it is. I'm not trying to say it's not, right, but I can look back on that and be like, man, I could have stayed one more year, at Colin, gotten my associates, like you're saying. I could have saved. I mean, let's see.
Thousands. I can
Oh,
already tell you
oh,
right now it's thousands.
it's probably, yeah. I'm thinking like 14 grand. Because
I
I
mean,
think around there, like 12 grand, if you're accounting for living expenses and books and tuition, on top of that.
yeah,
Um,
because so UT Dallas, my 2 years at UT Dallas, and that was, the full 2 years, so full-time student the entire time. And I did not pay for living. I drove to UT Dallas. I lived in Richardson, drove, which was so UT Dallas is in Richardson. I just lived there, and that's where I went to school.
mhm.
And oh no, I was taking it back. I lived in McKinney, so it was actually like a 30-40 minute drive every single time I went out there. But I would just stay on campus. I milked my time there for what it's worth because I also paid
Stayed
for
in the
parking.
library and
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And for 2 years I did that. So just for courses, textbooks, whatever, I came out and graduated with $27,000 in student loans. So it cost me literally $27,000 to go to UT Dallas for 2 years. So if I double
Right.
that, what am I at? 54,000, right? And
Yeah.
Collin College with which is at the time was free parking. Like they said you had to get like a parking pass, but no one ever got them.
Yeah, and even now,
you
I
had
think
it if you had it, but no one really cared. So
and I think
parking was
parking passes
free.
are like maybe $100 now.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't know what they are at Colin now. I know the cheapest ones for UT Dallas, which was you had to walk at least a mile to the closest building,
1,000.
was it was like 250 a semester, not even a year. It's 250 a semester.
That's crazy.
So it's stupid. So Colin College with parking, textbooks, credit hours, and I did 12 hours. I always said 12 hours because I work full time. And I realized that when I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week, I cannot do 16 credit hours like most people would. Most people do 15, 16.
Yeah, that's a good point, though.
All of that
I'm
combined,
glad you brought that up.
yes, and we definitely want to hit that. But all that in mind was first semester, I spent $1,200. That was it. And I got my associate's degree. So I got my associate's degree for what was that, $1,200, $2,400, so $4,800. So less than $5,000. I got my associate's degree, and I was able to pay for it out of pocket.
And it would have cost you roughly 27 grand to get that at UTD.
It would have cost me $27,000. So $27,000 or $5,000, let's say.
Yeah, and I think that UTD, honestly, I think if I remember right, is like, I wouldn't say on the cheaper side of universities, but it's not the most expensive. I can tell you that much. Like in Texas.
In regards to the University of Texas schools, actually, surprisingly, UT Dallas was the most expensive over UT Austin, which is the main UT campus.
Oh, that's shocking.
But I say that in a sense because what they did is I think it was either after 12 hours or 16 credit hours. Any classes you took past that were no more. Like you didn't have to pay any extra. So it was basically like a cap. So let's say it was 7,000 for 12 credit hours. So anything after those 12 credit hours, if I took 18 hours, for instance, it was still $7,000. And I don't remember if it was 12 or 16, but that was the kind of the idea that they played with. And that's how they kind of got you through. But in that case, up to whether it was 12 or 16, it was more expensive than any of the other University of Texas schools.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know that at my time at Texas Tech, I mean, it was just a year. And I mean, a huge factor, along with other factors, that we'll talk about later. But one of the big factors was that I was like, man, I can't afford this. And living in Lubbock is so cheap, man. My rent there was, if I remember right, my rent there was maybe $450 a month.
Jesus, dude.
And
that's insane.
we had a house. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So not even an apartment. So we had a house and granted, it wasn't just me. It was me and two of my friends, but still, I mean, like for a 3-bedroom house, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was like $1,500, which is like, if you're not aware
That's
of like
insane.
how much, if you're not aware of how much like rent is, especially around this area, anywhere in DFW, it is insane. That's like, you couldn't find that anywhere. So
like a 1-bedroom apartment right now is, I think, $1,200 on average.
Oh yeah.
That's cheap.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But, and that brings up another good point is like, when I feel like you have to know when you're going into college, if you are somebody who you're going to have to be working during it. And then going from there and finding out, okay, this is a good job for me while I'm doing this, while I'm going to school, how many classes I can actually handle with this workload. So if you need like full-time benefits or full-time money, from a full-time job, you're that is one of the more hard things to do as a 18 to 20-year-old is to work full-time and go to school full-time. I wasn't able to do it. I tried to do it, and it's part of the reason that like my grades dipped and my everything kind of fell off the wheels, because it's like, if you're doing that, you have no social life. Like you have no time to hang out with friends. You have no time to even just be by yourself. You know, you're constantly doing something at every hour of the day. And that's very hard. And it's
Yep.
okay to not be able to do that. Like, I think that there's a lot of pressure coming out to be like, oh, well, it's time to grow up. And like, while there
Yeah.
is some truth to that, it's just growing up doesn't mean that you have to like hate your life. You know, like there, you need to have a kind of like work life balance that you can like get behind, because, you know, the fact of the matter is, getting a degree is a process. It's like,
Yep.
it is a 4-year thing if you're perfect with it. If you do 15 hours every semester, it is a 4-year thing. Now, 4 years is a long time. If you're a junior in high school, you haven't even been in high school for 4 years.
Yeah. And
So
15 credit hours is a lot of college.
yeah, that's 5 classes that you're going. If you have 5 classes, now I don't know how much better it has gotten with like online, but odds are you're going to be in a class every day out of the week, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
If you're
And
taking
don't
5
even
classes.
forget, if you're doing a science class,
You have
you
a lab.
have an additional lab that takes 2 to
Yeah.
3 hours, and that's 0 credit hours. So if you
Or
have 2
1, I
science
think.
classes, you're essentially taking on 6 extra hours of work, but it's
Yeah.
not accredited to the science class that you're taking.
Right. Yeah. So I think that it's like, I really want to like drill that point home, because it's like, I felt the pressure too. It's like when you're there and you're like, oh, I can do this, you know, I can do this because that's like what has to happen. But like, you kind of, in my opinion, it's like you kind of do have to just like kind of pick. And it's like, I'm not saying you shouldn't work and go to school. Like I had to do it my entire, you know, life. But like for me, I started out doing 15 and I was like, this is crazy. This is too much, because
Yeah.
I had that science lab and I had like all these other things that I was doing. And then every single night I was working and I was getting home late and having to wake up in the morning. And it was just a bad balance. So what I did is I scaled back, and I would either do 10 or 12 hours in a semester. And then I would take a winter class or a summer class to kind of like compensate for it.
Mhm.
And I graduated a year later than I should have, but like, that's fine. Cause like, I enjoyed my time, you know? And you know, I wouldn't change it either way.
And that point right there, right? Like you finished a year later, and
Mm-hmm.
I hear countless times people that are trying to go through college and just finish as fast as humanly possible. And it's
Right.
insane to me, because I mean, just keep in mind, after college, everything you do is what's going to maintain your living, right? So
Right.
while you're in college, you can kind of take this time to figure out what you actually want to do. And
Right.
you can still have kind of that socialish life, hanging out with friends, you know, the club events, the sporting events, whatever. But I hear everyone's like, I got to finish as quickly as possible. You know, I got to do the fast track program and things like that. And it drives me insane, because I just see people rushing to the finish line and they're not enjoying the race in itself. Part of why people run marathons is not the finish line, it's the journey to the finish line. And
Right.
I feel like a lot of people are really overlooking that. And I don't necessarily blame them, because back when I was in high school, they really focused on making sure you could do what you manage. And if you wanted to go to the elite, to the prestigious schools, Harvard, what do they call it? Ivy League, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to do those, then you are going to have to do spectacular things. But they really left it for us as the choice to do that. You know, like they kind of set you up for how you wanted to be it. And so for me, I didn't want to go to Harvard. I didn't want to go to Yale. Would it have been cool? I'm sure it would have been, but it just wasn't for me. And so I took a bunch of honors classes and one AP course. And then those that wanted to go to Harvard, those that wanted to go to Yale, were all about AP, 6 classes, presidents,
Right,
3 different clubs, doing the sports. And but those were only a select few people in my school, maybe 10%, and probably the top 10%, I would say.
Right.
Nowadays, it's a common practice to only do AP classes. It's a common practice to be at least a part of 2 or 3 clubs. And this is for everybody now. This isn't just for the top 10% that are trying to do something spectacular. And what I've seen is it creates such this rush and intensity and such a focus on the school concept that I think a lot of people forget about the life concept, right?
Right.
And this is where you were kind of talking about when to be able to go to school and work at the same time, because it's not like going to school and doing a club for a school. When you work and when you're going to work, especially while in college, you're not working. I would say 90% of people are not going to work for the fun of it while in college.
Right.
They're doing it because bills and stuff has to be paid.
Yeah.
And
like I was working pizza delivery, not because pizza delivery is my passion, but because I wanted to be able to buy, like, just dinner.
Yeah.
Like,
or even
things.
buy the third calculator, because the 2 calculators you bought for semester 1 and 2 don't count for this semester and this one. Like, I literally had 3 different calculators by the end of college. I bought a basic calculator. I bought, basically it was like a hybrid between that TI-84 graphing calculator and the basic one. And then I had to get a financial calculator, so specifically for one finance class I took my last semester. And
this is a little tangent, but man, finance classes are like, that's by far and away the hardest classes I took in college. Accounting?
I agree. I need people to understand, if you're good at math and you like finance, or no, I take it back. If you're good at math and you think it's great and you're so good at it, it means nothing in finance. Absolutely
it's
nothing.
A different language.
But I was phenomenal in math. I was originally an engineering major. I loved math. It's not math. It's honestly, the only way I can explain finance is there's about 6 buttons on this calculator, and you have to know, with whatever word you're getting, you have to know the series of how to hit those buttons, all 6 buttons, because you will hit pretty much 4 to 6 of them every single time, and you just have to do it in a proper order. And then,
but it's coded in a way that it's like, Betty owns, this bakery and has this on her accounts receivable, blah, 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 with this percentage, can you find this? And it's like, I don't know. It sounds a lot, because that's kind of how I was. Like, I was very good with math in high school. Like, I took 2 years above, and my last 2 years, I didn't even have to take a math because I had taken, like, algebra when I was like a freshman. So I went into it being like, oh, this is fine. The same way that I went into physics, because people were like, oh, physics is just math and science. But like, it's like physics and it's way more science than it is math. And like, I was somebody who went through high school with like a 70 grade point average on like chemistry and biology. So it's tough.
Yeah. And that's what's funny, is because, and I'll probably tangent a little bit more and we'll probably go back, but biology was very similar. Biology, I think, is like the easiest high school course you can take. I mean, I flew through that class. Most people flew through that class. Biology in college is insanity.
See, biology for me in high school was terrible. So I know that I wouldn't. I know I couldn't have been a science major.
It's got to be at least 10 times harder in college. I didn't take a biology class, but I was able to sit into one. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, there were so many letters involved. It was insane. So brace yourself that the courses that you do well in high school, that won't necessarily fully translate to the courses that you do in college. But if you are good at math, that will still prevail for the most part. But I think like classes like accounting, finance, those sciences, they will be aggressively harder than you may originally thought of, which is just
Right.
good wise. But
Well, and it's not
going back
impossible, right?
to
It, yeah.
um, the working and going to college at the same time, you mentioned how you had to kind of back off the college credit hours from 15 to 10 to 12, right? And this is something that I
Mhm.
realized too. And my simple saying that I think is very, very helpful for people to understand is it's very important that you know how to work hard. Like you need to be able to withstand working hard. And I'm not
Right.
talking about super focusing in like music blaring in the headphones and grinding. I mean, just the unspeakable torture of waking up 4 or 5 a.m. to do whatever you need to do, whether it's going to school for an 8 a.m. class and you have to make the drive, whether you're working the opening shift at work and then going to school after that, and then going to school or doing your job and then being at home for enough time to eat and then study.
Right.
To the point where you're not going to bed until 11, 12, maybe sometimes even 1 or 2. And my schedule, just for people to kind of see and understand, because I think it'll make a little bit more sense, is when I went to college, I worked a 4:45 a.m. shift to a 1 p.m. shift. And I did that Monday through Thursday. Sometimes it was 2 p.m., but for the most part, it's 1 p.m. And then Fridays, I did 4:45 a.m. to 12 p.m. That was kind of like my day off, right? And then Monday through Thursday, I would do school, and I would pretty much do school until usually about 6 or 7 p.m. And then I would go home and, like I said, eat dinner, and then work on whatever homework, work on whatever projects, whatever it was that I needed to do. And that would put me to bed around 11 if I was lucky, usually midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning. So, like, I don't, people always think I joke, like, I got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Like, that was pretty much my life, except for the weekends. Usually I was able to get a little bit of sleep, take a little bit of nap. But
Hmm.
that was how I had to work. That was how I had to get through my life. And that was only with 12 credit hours. So about 4-ish classes, 5-ish classes. And
Right.
while that was just something that I had to do, and you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to do that, which is true. It's just kind of, for me, that was the way my life was set up, the way that I had to go about it. But I could have pulled more loans, right? To
Right.
kind of cut hours. And so there's pros and cons to how you want to go about this. And for me, it was just decrease as many loans as humanly possible. And so therefore, I compensated in order to decrease my loan amount. I increased my work amount, which was 40, 50 hours a week. Now,
Right.
granted, I was also living, I wouldn't say on my own, like I had roommates, like you had roommates, but
Hmm.
that was where it was. But you can only hold that for so long. And I didn't really kind of see how long I could hold that until probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And that's when I started to see, like, I just can't keep grinding from when I wake up till when I go to bed. Like, I can do it if I need to, but I can't keep that grind up for so long, right? Like, I have to find a way to structure my life. But
Right.
you have to be able to realize that while you can hold this out for a substantial amount of time, you also need to know that if there is a way to cut some time or cut some stress or relieve yourself of unwanted stress, like, you should do so. You shouldn't be so
Right.
focused on taking 16, 18, 20 credit hours because you want to finish quickly that you're not getting anything out of school, or you're so burnt out that you're just unhappy all the time. You
Yeah.
know, there's no shame in taking 10 or 12 hours. There's no shame in even taking a semester or a year off to get your head on straight. Like,
Dude, yeah, there's no shame in taking six.
yeah,
My roommate right now, he is take like he one of his semesters recently he took six, And it was because he was working 45 hours a week. And like, he's okay with finishing college late because he knows that when he gets, like, he knows what he's doing when he gets that degree, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, he just has to go get it. And he's working towards that right now, you know, with his current job and everything. So he had this, planned out for him kind of. And I'm kind of the opposite of your schedule when I was in college, because I was more the nighttime. So like, I would go to class in the morning, I
Right.
would come back home, have lunch, and then maybe an hour or two later have to go to work when I was working pizza delivery or when I was working as the site director for the YMCA. But both of those were like nighttime or evening shifts. And then I would come back home, have maybe 2 hours to finish homework, do all that stuff, and then I had to go to sleep. So, but I mean, before that, when I was trying to, do 15 hours, it was crazy because all the homework would just spill out into the next night. And then if I didn't do it then I knew that I just had to do more the next night, So, and procrastinating comes in, and the problem with procrastinating is you don't see the negative effects of it until it's too late, So until like the project is due, the next night. So,
Well, exactly. And that's what I think people don't realize is the first month and a half, 2 months of college seems very easy. This is where I took all my naps that I was talking about earlier. It wasn't until like midterms and that like Thanksgiving break, that's when I felt the pressure of college, because there's no grades the first month and a half. I mean, maybe a homework assignment, maybe one exam, but some college classes, it's a midterm and a final and a group project. Those are your three,
right.
maybe 4 grades if you do another exam. And so, yeah, that pressure and that procrastination that you're talking about is huge. Like, that's what's going to break you in college, is thinking you have all that free time up front and then feeling the pressure from procrastinating, or like you said, working. And if you're just so tired after working till midnight and then getting home, if you don't do that work, it doesn't disappear. Like, you have to do it the next day. And if you have work the next day, that's, this is where the sacrifice of sleep, the sacrifice of social life really comes from, is that right there. It doesn't go away because you want to do it the next day. Like, at some point, that's going to have an effect on you, or you're not going to pass the class.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm trying to work on still is, every day or every moment, like, trying to be the best version of myself. And like, that can be in anything I'm doing, right? Going to the gym, doing something for work, I don't know, picking up food, right? Like, just little things. But it's like, it is so hard to be the best version of yourself when you're burnt out. Like, and whether that's professional burnout or burnout from school or just burnout from just doing the same things over and over again. I mean, if you've seen SpongeBob, like, there's that episode with Squidward where he's like doing the same things over and over again, and like, over time his smile is just like slowly turning to a frown.
Yeah.
And like, that's so real, because it's like, and you felt this too because you worked many summers at Barefoot. It's like, in the summer when it's like every day all in or nothing, it's like that you don't even see it wearing on you until it's like a moment where you actually have to get up and go do something. You're like, man, I can't even, like, I don't know, like, you're like, I can't even get like excited right now. Like, I can't.
It's like, I don't even want to brush my teeth. Like, it's too much effort to literally brush my teeth. Like, that's like, and I think we've all felt that burnout too. Like, I think that's when people, you are correct. Like, it's really hard for you yourself to notice until like it almost gets to that extreme, because it's like, oh, I don't want to brush my teeth. I'll brush them in an hour. I just want to brush when I wake up. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't even want to get up, so it just kind of just dissipates into that.
Yeah.
People are like, wow, Parker doesn't brush his teeth or whatever. Guys, I brush my teeth plenty, okay? But there are times where I just really don't want to spend the 2 minutes to brush my teeth. but I'm also a freak about my teeth, so I will. So maybe it's just a bad example. But I brush my teeth, guys. I promise.
Yeah, I mean I think it's also just like your, you know, positive out. I mean, it's hard to have a positive outlook on something when you already have a negative attitude towards, whether it be your life or what you're actually doing. It's hard to kind of put on that mask. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, finding that, kind of to wrap this thing up. I mean, it's kind of just all about finding that balance and like knowing yourself. And you're not going to know yourself like when you like if you're in high school right now, if you're a junior or senior in high school, I mean, odds are you don't know who you are. And like that's okay. Like you're going to find like these next 5 years, that's what it's for. Is like finding yourself and finding what you're passionate about and like finding your likes, finding your dislikes. Um and like I want y'all to like embrace, the process of that. Like embrace disliking something or embrace going through hardships and like embrace, working hard when you need to. And embrace like failing. I think that's like a very important thing that me and both you and I have gone through in life. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I think our next few, like at least within the next 5 to 10, those two topics are going to be actual topics that we talk about, like learning to figure out who you are. Because once you figure out who you are, life does become substantially easier for you because you
right.
now know what you're trying to be. And so that's definitely coming down the road. And that's going to be probably one of my favorite podcasts. And we're going to do it up front and gritty because it's, to me, it was a huge transition in my life where I felt like I wasn't sure where I was going to be to, even though I'm not necessarily where I want to be, I'm already in a great spot and I already know what the next steps are to get more and bigger to
Right.
be where I want to be.
And
Um,
you're going to improve on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's all about my person and my character. And as
Right.
long as I'm abiding by that, I know what someone of my character looks like down the road. Like I already have examples of people that have my same kind of, I wouldn't say 100% same, but same morals, same ethics, and their level of success. And I can always see that vision because I know who I am. But a lot of
Yeah.
people, they just want to view the successful person as a successful person, but not necessarily the successful person that defines their success. And there's another podcast, and this is where we can all kind of see all these podcasts. Like we're gonna really break down all these different types of concepts to truly help build that so that you can be the best version of yourself, whether you're getting swamped, whether you're having to do the same grind over and over and over again. So again, kind of like the knowing how to work hard, but learning how to work smart. There's another one. Learning how to fail and how to, I don't want to say you almost like want failure, but you want to, I like to
Embrace it.
think failure not as a negativity, but as a learning point, right?
Right.
Because you don't learn unless you fail. And the failures create usually the greatest lessons. And so, like, how to view failure not as a negative thing of, oh my gosh, I've let people down because I failed, which we do have to accept that probably will happen, but more of, okay, I failed because XYZ. Now, if I do ABC, I won't fail these people again, or I won't fail myself again, or I won't fail in general, but only of that
Right.
particular thing. But that's how we grow and that's how we move on. And I think when people start seeing failure in that concept, there should be a massive, substantial growth because failure is massive right now. That's one of probably the biggest things. And I know you could probably agree with that. That's probably the biggest thing we see right now running and helping these lifeguards is
Mm-hmm.
there's such fear of failure that there's fear of even attempting
To learn.
to be successful. Yeah, to learn.
No, for sure.
So that's kind of the future wrapped up. This is what we're heading for. But it's like a weird tangent back to detour because we started with college, and I wanted to kind of wrap that up just to kind of give people an understanding and maybe what they can kind of push for when pursuing college and how to graduate. Looking back, um, for me, I guess I'll start with me and kind of and pop it off to you. But I wish I would have started out with community college and then gone to university. Like I actually kind of like the path that I went. And what I kind of question is a lot of people don't want to do this because they want the college experience. And so my question to everyone at this point is what is the college experience, of which I kind of think and already know is the partying life, right? And which is fine. If you want to party hardy, fine. But for those instances, it's one, I don't even know. I don't even know how to like word this, but I understand kind of wanting to be on your own, make your own choices. You know, you don't have the parents kind of discipline you, telling you to come back at curfew and things like that. And I get that. But remember that college is there to get you to the next step. And unfortunately, partying it up and getting wasted every weekend, 3 times a week, whatever it is, like that's not going to get you there. And if you're just trying to learn and make friends and go to parties to make friends at those parties and things like that, those things can be done even at a community college level. You know, there are people our age that are going to community college. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily lost within that. Now, what do you lose? Football games for sure, a lot of sports. And that's understandable. But at the same time, like you also have friends that go to different universities, different nearby universities. And guess what? Those universities do have football, basketball, volleyball. And so just even if it's not your community college that you're necessarily rooting for, you can still visit those people at their universities and still kind of get that experience. Is it the best? No. Is it the best solution? No. But I still think it's greater. It's a huge money saver. And then you get to go to a university of your choice after your associate degree and still get those college experiences, the sports, the extra clubs, the sororities and things like that. So for me, I think, and what I encourage is probably the community college route, just for the money savings. And I still felt like I had a pretty good college life, you know? But what about you, Tanner? Like, what's your thought on all of it?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's like if you have the luxury of being able to go to a university right away, right? Like you're not taking out loans, maybe your parents are paying for it, maybe you have money saved up, or otherwise, right? You're going there with, you know, no huge money restrictions on you. I say go for it, because when I did the community college route too, and that's because it was best for me. And looking back on it, I wish that I had stayed an extra year at community college, gotten my associates like we were talking about, and then gone to university. But it's a little hypocritical for me to speak out against, you know, going to the university like early like that when that's what I did. And like living alone and like living without your parents, right? Being on your own, it's awesome. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, it's an awesome feeling to be able to like, you know, do what you want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
But at the same time, you have to realize you're taking on big responsibilities. Like, for instance, when I took on my first lease when I went to Lubbock, when I went to Texas Tech, I was like, my first few months, I was just like, I was late on rent. It was just like a stupid thing, right? Like it was just me being like an irresponsible kid. I'm not saying that everybody who goes to university right away is going to do that, but that's just a little thing, right? That's just like a very little responsibility that like I didn't keep up with at the beginning of my lease, and they would charge me late fees, and like those late fees, when I had the money in my account that I had saved up, I was like, oh, this isn't a big deal. It's $25, but $25 over 3 months, that's $75, right? So it's like
Mhm.
little things like that that you don't even think of, that you can learn without even knowing that you're learning it if you take time and you go to community college and you maybe you live at home. And another thing is like if you are like in a bad living situation or you don't want to live at home, that's fine. You can find cheap housing like I did at a community college and then also save money on your tuition. Um, but I think that it's like another thing is like you're going to have to be like, I think that somebody who's going from 18 years old straight out of high school going to university, versus somebody who spends 2 years at a community college, going to university, personally you're going to deal with a lot of the same realizations, right? Like the realizing that you have responsibilities like I was talking about. You're
Yeah.
going to deal with that stuff regardless of how old you are, but you're going to have to tackle that. You're going to have to tackle that at some point in your life. So it's kind of like, are you willing to rush that? Like, do you want to go into that right away, or do you want to have a little bit more knowledge on that before you do that? So I think it varies, between who you are, and what your situation is. But I hate that there's this stigma against community college because it's like, oh, it's lame, it's this, it's that. If you are a cool person, if you have friends, if you can make friends, like you're gonna have fun wherever you're at. Like, and I'm not even talking about the partying and stuff. Like, you're gonna make friends at whatever college you're at. That's what college is for. Whether it's community college, whether it's Collin College or it's the University of Texas at Austin. Like,
Mhm.
it's you're gonna make friends wherever you're at. So I think that if you're choosing to go to a university strictly off partying, strictly off making the best friends, that's a bad decision. You're not going into it with the right intentions. You're not like thinking of the more important things at hand. Because I think I just don't think that matters all that much. I think that, like I said, I mean, you're gonna find that anywhere. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and you make a good point because I'm over here thinking I have to pay for college, right? Because I didn't do the scholarship
Right.
thing purely out of laziness. So my lesson there for anyone is please apply to scholarships, even if
I'll
you
apply
think
for
it's a waste
everything.
of time. It
I got a I
it'll
got
save.
a I think I got a $200 scholarship, or like I don't even know if it was a scholarship, but it was a grant for having red hair.
That's
I'm not even
amazing.
kidding.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
you just look it up. I mean, like, you apply for everything that you can. Apply for
Yeah.
everything, because the worst thing they're going to tell you is no, and then you
Yeah.
just move on.
So yeah, yeah, like going back, if you're most of your college is paid for from scholarships, academic, sports, I think you are right in that sense. Like you might as well just go to the university because you're not going to end off, with debt because it's majority paid off or mainly paid off. So you make a good point there. I would say for those where you may have to pay for your college, or even if your parents are all paying for partially of your college, maybe just see what the community college life is like. See what that associate's degree path is like. Because, like I said, if you get your associate's degree, that's going to transfer over to a university a lot easier than even 1 year or a year and a half. And it only takes about 2 years to get your associate's degree anyway.
Oh yeah,
So
I don't think there's a lot of
that's kind of the
universities.
how we view it is where are your finances is actually coming from, and you can kind of play it off there.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a lot of universities that would turn you away if you got your associate's degree at a community college. Like, I really don't think there's a lot of universities in Texas that you wouldn't be able to get to or get into strictly based off that accomplishment. Like
Yeah, well,
most,
and community colleges are usually based at minimum off the state colleges you're
yeah,
going to.
yeah,
So there is like now it may be a little bit harder for me to take my associates and go to like in state or something a little bit more out, like University of California, wherever. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like if you're just trying to go to school in state, generally that's going to be cheaper anyways. Um, those community colleges are usually there if you get associate's degree to transfer to a university of that state. And for us, it was Texas, right? So it
Right.
was there to help us get into a University of Texas school or some type of Texas university, A&M, whatever.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I think that was good. So I hope you all enjoyed it. We hit pretty much right an hour, which was the goal. I wasn't sure if we were going to hit that goal,
We hit it perfect.
but we did absolutely perfectly. Like I said, we kind of talked about the future topics that are already coming up. Not sure what the next topic particularly is going to be, but it's probably one of those maybe 4 or 5 that I already mentioned. If you did like it, please share with anybody and everybody. We are sharing on all platforms right now. I think there's like 12 to 13 of them. And so share on whatever platform you like the most. If there's one that you prefer and there's a way to make comments on that, please let us know. But really appreciate everyone listening to us. If you are trying to work for us, a little bit of marketing. Our training for instructors starts into January, and our lifeguard training start after Easter. So barefoot.net is our website. Click on and I think it's like employment and just fill out the application, select your training, and then someone will reach out to you, see if you need help or anything like that to get into your class. But absolutely love to have you. For those that are current employees and returning employees, thank you so much for listening to us. I know we cannot say this enough, but we love and appreciate you all very much and cannot begin to explain our gratitude for all of you. And until next time, we will see you soon. And thank you very much.
Love you guys. Talk to y'all
Love
later.
y'all. Have a good one.